1:47 a.m., March 3, 2026. A chemistry laboratory on the fourth floor of a research building at a major university in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A man in a white lab coat stood over a rotary evaporator. The flask was cooling. Inside, 1.2 kilograms of methamphetamine at 96.3% purity. 12 federal agents moved through the hallway outside. DEA-FBI. University police providing building access. The professor didn't hear them coming. He had noise-canceling headphones on. Classical music. Brahms. The door opened at 1:47 a.m. The professor turned, saw the tactical vests, the badges, the drawn weapons. He set down the flask carefully. The instinct of a chemist, not a criminal. Then he raised his hands. 14 years. That's how long Dr. Leland Marsh had been manufacturing methamphetamine inside a federally funded university laboratory. Since 2012. Using equipment purchased with National Science Foundation grants. Producing 2 to 3 kilograms per month at a purity that commanded premium street prices across 4 states. Total estimated output, over 400 kilograms. Street value, $67 million. The case that led to that laboratory door began with a chemical fingerprint. Not a human one, a molecular one. And it had been sitting in a DEA database for over a decade, waiting for someone to connect the dots. The DEA's North Central Laboratory in Chicago processes thousands of drug samples every year. Seized methamphetamine arrives from field offices across the upper Midwest. Chemists analyze composition, purity, and impurity profiles. Every batch of methamphetamine carries trace signatures, byproducts of the synthesis process, residual solvents, unreacted precursors. These signatures function like fingerprints. They reveal how the drug was made, what chemicals were used, and sometimes where it was produced. Starting in 2013, DEA forensic chemists noticed a recurring anomaly. A specific impurity profile kept appearing in methamphetamine samples seized in Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The profile was unusual for 3 reasons. First, the purity was consistently above 95%. Mexican cartel methamphetamine typically tested between 80 and 90%. This was cleaner. Second, the synthesis method used a reductive amination pathway with a specific palladium catalyst, a technique common in academic organic chemistry but almost never seen in clandestine manufacturing. Street cooks used pseudoephedrine reduction, or the P2P method. This was something else entirely. Third, every sample contained trace amounts of an obscure reagent called DIBALH, diisobutyl aluminum hydride. It's used in pharmaceutical research and advanced organic synthesis. It costs $340 per 100 milliliters. No clandestine lab would use it. The only facilities that routinely stocked DIBALH were university research laboratories and pharmaceutical companies. The signature appeared in 47 separate seizures between 2013 and 2024. Always small quantities, never more than 3 kilograms at a time. Always in the same 4-state region. The consistency was remarkable. Same purity range, same impurity profile, same reagent traces. For over a decade, one manufacturer had been producing methamphetamine with the precision of a pharmaceutical operation. DEA analysts assigned the unknown source a tracking designation. Internally, agents started calling the manufacturer the Professor. It began as a joke about the academic-grade chemistry. Nobody actually believed it was a professor. The case remained classified as a low-priority pattern analysis file. The quantities were small. No violence was associated with the distribution network. The methamphetamine appeared to move through mid-level dealers with no direct cartel connections. Without a geographic anchor or a suspect, the investigation had nowhere to go. That changed in October 2025. On October 14, 2025, 3 people in Fargo, North Dakota, died within 6 hours of each other. 2 men, ages 31 and 28, and a woman, age 24. Autopsies revealed the cause: fentanyl-laced methamphetamine. The methamphetamine component tested at 94.7% purity with the familiar DEA-FBI signature. The fentanyl was a recent addition, crudely mixed in, inconsistent with the precision of the base product. The professor's methamphetamine had never contained fentanyl before. Someone in the supply chain had started cutting it. 3 people were dead. The Fargo deaths elevated the case from a forensic curiosity to an active homicide-linked investigation. DEA's Minneapolis Field Division reopened the file. The FBI's Minneapolis office was brought in under a joint task force agreement. An FBI behavioral analyst from the Behavioral Analysis Unit at Quantico was assigned to build a profile of the unknown manufacturer. The profile, completed in November 2025, described the following characteristics. Male, likely between 45 and 65 years old, with advanced formal training in organic chemistry. The manufacturer was almost certainly employed in a legitimate chemistry role, academic, pharmaceutical, or industrial, based on the sophistication of the synthesis and the use of specialized reagents. He was methodical, disciplined, and risk-averse. The small batch sizes and consistent quality indicated someone who valued control over profit maximization. The 14-year operational span without detection suggested high intelligence, a stable lifestyle, and no criminal record. The behavioral profile narrowed the search. DEA began cross-referencing 2 datasets: the geographic distribution of seizures and the locations of research institutions with organic chemistry programs in the upper Midwest. Seizures clustered around Minneapolis-St. Paul, with distribution radiating outward to Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The epicenter was Minneapolis. The Twin Cities metropolitan area contained multiple universities with research-level chemistry departments. DEA identified 7 institutions with laboratories that routinely stocked DEA-FBI. Agents began reviewing chemical supply orders, looking for anomalies in consumption patterns. This was the phase that required patience. Supply chain forensics, purchase orders, inventory logs. Comparing the amount of DEA-FBI a laboratory ordered against the amount its published research should require. Tedious work, essential work. Then came the break. On December 8, 2025, a graduate student named Rachel Nguyen walked into the office of the chemistry department chair at her university. She reported something that had been bothering her for months. Chemical supplies in her advisor's laboratory were depleting faster than they should. Specifically, solvents, reagents, and palladium catalysts were disappearing at rates that didn't match the research output of the lab. Nguyen's advisor was Dr. Leland Marsh, age 58, tenured professor of organic chemistry, specialized in catalytic synthesis, published 127 peer-reviewed papers, recipient of 3 NSF grants totaling $4.2 million over the past decade. The department chair treated the report as a potential inventory management issue. He mentioned it to the university's compliance office. The compliance officer, following federal grant accountability protocols, contacted the NSF's Office of Inspector General. The Inspector General's office, recognizing the potential for grant fraud, contacted the FBI. FBI Special Agent Karen Liu received the referral on December 19, 2025. She ran Marsh's name through federal databases. No criminal record, no prior investigations. But when Liu cross-referenced the university's location with the DEA's seizure map, the geography matched. When she requested Marsh's research specialty from the university, the chemistry matched. Catalytic synthesis, palladium catalysts, DEA-FBI. Liu contacted the DEA task force the same day. For the first time in 14 years, the professor had a name. If you're watching this and want to see how this case ends, hit subscribe. More cases like this are coming. The investigation moved carefully. A premature arrest could compromise evidence and alert potential co-conspirators. The task force needed to establish 3 things: that Marsh was manufacturing methamphetamine, that he was doing it in the university laboratory, and that his product was the same methamphetamine that had been appearing in seizures for 14 years. On January 6, 2026, FBI agents obtained a warrant for Dr. Marsh's university building access logs. The logs covered 3 years, the maximum the university's electronic system retained. The data was clear. Over the previous 36 months, Marsh had entered the Keller Chemistry Building 247 times between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. on weekends and university holidays. Friday nights, Saturday nights, holiday breaks. Summer sessions when the building was nearly empty. His average session lasted 4.5 hours. No other faculty member in the chemistry department had comparable after-hours access patterns. The next most frequent late-night user averaged 23 entries per year. Marsh averaged 82. The access logs established opportunity. Now, agents needed direct evidence. On January 14, 2026, a federal magistrate authorized physical and electronic surveillance of Marsh and his laboratory. FBI technical agents installed concealed cameras in the hallway outside Marsh's fourth-floor lab. A separate warrant authorized monitoring of his university email and a GPS tracker on his vehicle. The surveillance began producing results immediately. January 17, 2026. Friday night. Marsh entered the Keller Chemistry Building at 11:22 p.m. through a side entrance. He was carrying a small gym bag. He took the elevator to the fourth floor, entered his laboratory, closed the door. The hallway camera recorded him leaving at 3:41 a.m. The gym bag appeared heavier. January 24th, 2026. Same pattern. Arrival at 11:08 p.m. Departure at 3:55 a.m. January 31st, 2026. Arrival at 10:47 p.m. Departure at 4:12 a.m. Every Friday night. Same routine, same gym bag, same hours. FBI agents couldn't see inside the laboratory. Yes, the warrant didn't authorize interior cameras due to concerns about capturing other researchers' proprietary work. But they could observe inputs and outputs. They noted the weight differential of the bag going in versus coming out. They cataloged his movements before and after each session. Then they got another break. On February 3rd, 2026, GPS data showed Marsh driving to a self-storage facility in Brooklyn Park, a Minneapolis suburb, every Saturday morning, the day after his Friday night lab sessions. Unit 1247, rented under the name L. Morrison since 2014. Paid in cash every month for 12 years. Agents obtained a warrant for the storage unit. They didn't execute it immediately. They waited. Watched. On February 8th, Marsh arrived at the storage facility at 9:14 a.m., entered Unit 1247, stayed for 22 minutes, and left. Surveillance photographed him carrying the gym bag inside and emerging without it. On February 10th, 2026, while Marsh was teaching an undergraduate class in catalytic chemistry, FBI agents executed the search warrant on Unit 1247. Inside, they found 4.7 kilograms of methamphetamine packaged in vacuum-sealed bags. A digital scale accurate to 0.001 grams. 3 prepaid cell phones. $127,000 in cash, bundled in $5,000 increments, and a laptop computer. The laptop was encrypted. FBI cyber forensics would eventually crack it. What they found on it would prove to be the most damaging evidence in the case. But first, the methamphetamine from the storage unit was sent to the DEA's North Central Laboratory in Chicago for analysis. The results came back on February 14th. Purity, 96.1%. Synthesis method, reductive amination with palladium catalyst. Trace reagent, DIBALH, an exact match to the professor's signature. 14 years of seizure data, 47 separate samples, all linked to one man. DEA Chemist confirmed something else. The fentanyl found in the Fargo death batch was not part of the original synthesis. It had been added downstream, shot by a distributor, not by the manufacturer. Marsh produced clean methamphetamine. Someone else had made it lethal. That someone was identified through the prepaid phones found in the storage unit. Call records led investigators to a distribution network operated by 2 men. Kyle Rehnquist, 34, of Moorhead, Minnesota, and Brian Pollock, 41, of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Rehnquist and Pollock had been purchasing methamphetamine from Marsh since 2019 and distributing it across the region through a network of mid-level dealers. In late September 2025, facing pressure from Mexican cartel product flooding the market at lower prices, Rehnquist began cutting Marsh's methamphetamine with illicitly manufactured fentanyl to stretch supply and lower costs. He did this without Marsh's knowledge. The October 14th overdose deaths in Fargo were the direct result. Leave a comment. Should Marsh bear responsibility for the fentanyl deaths, even though he didn't add the fentanyl himself? The FBI cyber forensics team cracked the laptop encryption on February 21st, 2026. The hard drive contained a folder labeled Supplemental Research Data. Inside that folder, 14 years of production logs, every batch, every date, every yield measurement, every purity test result. Marsh had documented his clandestine manufacturing with the same rigor he applied to his published research. Date of synthesis, reagents used, quantities, reaction times, temperature profiles, yield in grams, purity percentage. The earliest entry, March 14, 2012. The most recent, January 31st, 2026. Total documented production across 14 years, 412 kilograms. Average monthly output, 2.45 kilograms. Average purity, 95.8%. The logs showed a gradual improvement in technique over the years. Early batches averaged 91% purity, while recent ones consistently exceeded 96%. Marsh had also kept financial records. Not in the same folder, these were in a separate encrypted partition. Total documented revenue, $14.3 million, not $67 million. The street value figure reflected retail pricing. Marsh sold wholesale to Rehnquist, Pollock, and before them, to two other distributors who had since retired from the trade. His wholesale price? Approximately $35,000 per kilogram. Still substantial. $14.3 million over 14 years averaged just over $1 million per year in untaxed income, on top of his $142,000 university salary. Where did the money go? The financial investigation revealed a disciplined spending pattern consistent with Marsh's overall profile. No luxury cars, no expensive vacations, no unusual purchases that might trigger bank reporting requirements. Marsh deposited small amounts into multiple bank accounts, always under the $10,000 reporting threshold. He invested in index funds through 3 separate brokerage accounts under his own name and his wife's name. His wife, Dr. Patricia Marsh, a clinical psychologist, was investigated and cleared. She had no knowledge of her husband's manufacturing operation. The couple lived in a 4-bedroom house in the Linden Hills neighborhood of Minneapolis. Market value, $890,000. Mortgage paid off in 2023, 5 years early. The task force spent February building the federal case. Grand jury proceedings began on February 24, 2026. Indictments were sealed pending the arrest operation. The arrest was scheduled for March 3, 2026. Agents chose a Friday night when Marsh would be in his laboratory, actively manufacturing. An arrest during production would provide the strongest possible evidence. The defendant caught in the act. March 3, 2026. Surveillance confirmed Marsh entered the Keller Chemistry Building at 10:53 p.m. 4th floor, Laboratory 417. The building was otherwise empty. It was spring break. At 1:30 a.m., the tactical team assembled. 6 DEA agents, 4 FBI agents, 2 university police officers who had been briefed only that morning to prevent information leaks. The team entered through the building's loading dock using keys provided by University Facilities Management. Elevator to the 4th floor. Hallway approach on foot. Low voices. The faint hum of laboratory equipment audible through the door. A chemical smell. Ether. Acetone. 1:47 a.m. Entry. Marsh was standing at a fume hood. A rotary evaporator was running. A round-bottom flask contained approximately 1.2 kilograms of methamphetamine in the final stages of crystallization. A second flask held precursor chemicals mid-reaction. His lab notebook, his real one, not the university research notebook, was open on the bench. That night's entry was half completed. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He removed his headphones, set down a glass stirring rod, and put his hands on the laboratory bench. When agents informed him he was under arrest, his only words were, "I'd like to call my attorney." The arrest team secured the laboratory as a crime scene. DEA forensic chemists documented everything: the equipment, the chemicals, the in-progress synthesis, the finished product. They photographed the setup from every angle. University equipment being used for federal crimes. Fume hoods purchased with NSF grant money. Reagent-grade chemicals from university supply accounts. In the following 48 hours, simultaneous operations took down the distribution network. Kyle Rehnquist was arrested at his home in Moorhead at 6:15 a.m. on March 4th. Brian Pollock was arrested in Sioux Falls at 7:02 a.m. the same morning. 11 mid-level dealers across 4 states were arrested over the next week. Total seizures from the network takedown: 8.3 kilograms of methamphetamine, $443,000 in cash, and 14 firearms. Dr. Leland Marsh was charged with manufacturing a controlled substance, conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, misuse of federally funded equipment and materials, money laundering, and tax evasion. The manufacturing charge alone carries a mandatory minimum of 10 years. With the volume involved in over 400 kilograms, federal sentencing guidelines indicate 20 years to life. Kyle Rehnquist faces additional charges for the 3 fentanyl-related deaths in Fargo. Under federal law, distribution of a controlled substance resulting in death carries a mandatory minimum of 20 years and a maximum of life imprisonment. Marsh's university moved swiftly. His tenure was revoked on March 10, 2026. His 3 active NSF grants totaling $1.8 million in remaining funds were suspended. The university launched an internal review of all chemistry department laboratory access protocols. Federal auditors began examining whether grant funds had been used to purchase chemicals diverted to methamphetamine production. Preliminary findings suggest approximately $340,000 in reagents and solvents over 14 years were consumed by Marsh's clandestine operation. Chemicals purchased with taxpayer money through federal research grants. Marsh's published research during this period was also scrutinized. His 127 papers were reviewed for potential fabrication. 12 papers were flagged for retraction after investigators determined that some experimental results may have been derived from or influenced by his illicit synthesis work. The line between his legitimate research and his manufacturing had blurred over the years. The graduate student Rachel Nguyen completed her degree transfer to another institution. Her doctoral research, 4 years of work conducted in Marsh's laboratory, is under review. It may need to be repeated entirely if contamination from the methamphetamine production affected her results. As of April 2026, the investigation continues. Financial forensics teams have traced $11.2 million of the $14.3 million in documented revenue. The remaining $3.1 million is unaccounted for. Marsh has not cooperated with investigators regarding the missing funds. His attorney has indicated he will plead not guilty to all charges. The DEA's forensic database still contains 2 additional unresolved chemical signatures from the upper Midwest region that share partial similarities with Marsh's profile. Whether Marsh trained or inspired other chemists to replicate his methods remains an open question. No evidence has been found, but the question exists. One detail from Marsh's production log stands out. Every entry followed the same format he used in his published research papers. Dates, methods, results, conclusions. He documented 14 years of illegal manufacturing with the same scientific discipline he applied to his academic career. As if the 2 activities occupied the same mental category. As if producing methamphetamine was simply another line of research. The university laboratory on the 4th floor of the Keller Chemistry Building has been decontaminated and reassigned. New card readers require 2-factor authentication for after-hours access. Chemical inventory is now audited monthly instead of annually. The system that failed to detect marsh for 14 years has been updated. The question of whether it will detect the next one remains unanswered,